Welcome to unboxing your link and getting started on the tips and tricks to get you roasting. It all starts by going to nucleuscoffeetools.com to download all of the software, the app, and the user manuals. Click on the product tab link, click on downloads, and it'll take you to the bottom of the screen where you'll find all of the information that you need. Note that there's a different download for Mac users and Windows users, as well as Android and Apple. We're going to start by opening the user manual. I thoroughly recommend that you take the time to read through all the pages to understand all the details of your link. It covers all the procedures in depth and gives you a great insight into the best operational manners and behaviors that you can expect from your different profiles and this roaster. Once reading through it, we're now going to download the Link software, or what we call Link Studio. When we download this for a Mac user, you may experience the following thing, because it is an unidentified developer app. You may need to download this through your privacy settings. So we're going to go to our Finder. We're going to open Settings. When in the Private and Security menu, scroll down and you'll notice that we can see the download and click Open. This is going to prompt us to open and start the installation. Now I recommend that each user reads through the license and conditions before agreeing to the download. Once you have clicked Agree, we then need to install the program, and it should take a couple of moments to download onto our computer. You can choose to keep the software installer on your browser or delete it. Note if you do need to reinstall, you can just go to the Nucleus Coffee Tools website. So let's open the software. You can see that's on our computer and ready to roll. Let's now move on to the next step of unboxing our link. So once we get it out of the box and open it up, you will have your roaster, the husk collector, the density tube and dosing cup, the bean tray, and the space for your accessories and cables. We're going to pull all these items out and put them on the table, ready to get roasting. Let's start by plugging in the unit. We're going to turn this around and also plug in the USB-C side into the back of the roaster. Once that's done, let's turn it around, flick it on, and just make sure it's all working. The next step is to go to our App Store and download the Link app. This is findable by searching in Google Play or Apple Store Link app. You may need to scroll down a few options to find this one. When you find it, simply click on the download. It's a free download, and you'll need to create a user account. I've already done that, so when I download, it opens straight into the app. The next step is recommended that you download an app to figure out your relative altitude at any time. This will be used in the fan calibration. So type in my altitude. The app that I like to use is the current altitude. We're going to open that to figure out our current meters above sea level. So wherever you are, it's recommended that you set your link up to make sure the fan speed is turning correctly. Currently, we are at 70 meters above sea level, so we're going to open the Link app and click on the fan calibration. We're going to type in 70 meters above sea level. Then the current power source that we're using, today it is the 220 volt. It is then going to give us a recommended setting. Next, we're going to take 100 grams of coffee and place that into our roaster, and we're going to click the far menu button once to open fan speed, then push play to activate, which will allow you to see how the coffee is turning. With the coffee in the roaster and the lid off, we'll notice that this is a standard behavior of how the coffee should be moving. Remember, there is going to be far more air restriction with the husk collector. With it on, standard moving is a slow, pulsating tumble. From the top view, it is a slow circular motion with the occasional vertical lift and tumble of the coffee beans. Now, an example. If your Link app suggests to you a solution above or below the default 1.000, we use the plus or the minus buttons to increase or decrease the value to the suggested calibration. Let's set this to 1.030. To confirm this new setting, simply push play. If we go back into the fan speed trim, we will notice that this point of 1.30 has been saved as the new reference point. This will be utilized by the Link firmware to indicate to the roaster the revolutions per minute of air circulation needed to mimic roasting at sea level, even if you are roasting at higher elevations. A handy tip to remember. This new setting will remain saved in the Link's memory even if the power to the unit is turned off or unplugged. This is especially important if you travel to a new location with your Link. Remember that you will need to do the altitude reading again. With that new number, then adjust the reference point to any new recommended setting. If at any point you get lost at where the fan speed trim should be, we can do a standard machine reset to restore it back to the factory setting. Do this by holding in play, then turning off and on the unit. Now, when we go into fan speed trim, we will note that it is at 1.000 again. Additionally, note anytime you reset the unit, it will always take the fan speed trim back to that factory point. So if your coffee stops moving correctly at any point after performing a reset, it's good practice that you always make sure to check this first. Lastly, at any point through calibration, your coffee consistently doesn't seem to be moving correctly. It's very important that you don't continue to proceed through the next steps to do a roast. Instead, in your web browser, open a service ticket through the Cafologic website, cafologic.atlassian.net/service desk. Get in contact with your local Link distributor also. Shortly, someone will get in contact to talk you through a remote recalibration in the unlikely but possible event that there has been a shift in the factory zero setting during transit. With that setup, it's now time to connect your Link. We're going to plug the cable into the computer. Now, if your computer doesn't take USB-A, it's recommended you use an adapter instead of using an aftermarket cable, as the original factory cable gives you the best connection. So plug that into your socket, then open up the computer and launch the Link software. You'll notice that once it's launched and the plug is connected, we will have the connection established, which is shown by the illumination of the little green tick. If your unit doesn't connect straight away, and after 5 to 10 seconds the connection icon remains broken, then the easiest way to reconnect is to remove the cable from the back of the unit. Wait 2 to 3 seconds and then plug it back in. You should notice that doing this prompts a reconnection to illuminate the little green tick. Next, if a roast is in progress and you forgot to connect the cable before starting, open your studio and plug the cable into the computer first. Next, take the cable to the unit and remove it. Then, like before, replug it. This will not only reconnect to show the live roast progress, but also what had already happened in the roast prior to that connection being established. Now your connection is guaranteed. Let's get back to exploring the features of the studio. Let's click on the black bonbon icon. The first thing I would recommend is making sure that your firmware is up to date. To access this, click on the Firmware tab. We click on Install and then make sure that sends it across the roaster. In order to download this, you will need a Wi-Fi connection. It will take some time to download to the computer before prompting you to push OK to send it across to the roaster. With firmware up to date, it's now time to install your profile packs. If they're not shown, click on the Profile tabs. Then you'll see the install version 1 up the top of the screen. Click on that. Now note, this is going to take a few moments to install, and do not disconnect your roaster until the loading bar on the top is shown as complete. Once it's complete and returned to green, you'll have this pop-up screen. When you click OK, you'll notice that the roaster again resets. When we go back to the Profiles tab and then open the Inbox tab, see our 5 cupping inboxes with all the profiles in them ready for us to use. Before roasting, we're going to go into the Preference menu by pushing the far right button 5 times and then play. The first option is our priority control system. I recommend that this is set into DTR. Do this by pushing the plus button, which is second from the left. This is development % control, and this is how the link is designed to best operate. More details on this function are clearly outlined on page 24 of your user manual. Next, we are going to go back into Preferences by pushing the far right button 5 times, play, and then the far right button once more to go into the secondary preference menu. In this function, we're going to set the unit up to allow a reset of any logged cracking point in between each batch that's roasted. It's recommended that users start in this function in order to make sure that if they are not selecting a new profile or resetting the unit in between each roast, the noted point of the crack from a previous roast is not overriding the default point that's set up on the roast profiles within the link system. To activate this, push the plus button on the unit, which is second from the left. An important note for a first-time user, logging the first crack is not necessary. Setting up these preferences is purely for more advanced users who are wishing to optimize the capabilities of the link system. It is only recommended that you log the first crack when you have roasting experience and have developed the accurate ability to reference the exacting point at which you should be logging the crack. For more advanced users wishing to maximize the optimizations out of the link, in scenarios where you're roasting the same coffee several times, you may want to go into Preferences and turn that Always Reset function on to No. By doing this, when you log the first crack during your first roast, the link system will now remember that point. This now means that for preceding roast of the same coffee, you would no longer need to log the manual point of the first crack in order to have the exact DTR function kick in. It would simply reference the first crack off the previous profile and make sure that the roast time, the development, and the increase of temperature after the point of the first crack match the parameters that were established by the first batch that was roasted. Remember, the primary purpose of this function is to allow the user who is roasting the same coffee several times in one session the convenience to be able to replicate a profile's DTR activation without requiring any repeated manual logging of the first crack. Please note, it is not recommended to have this function turned on when preparing samples of many different coffees or even different lots from the same farm, as the cracking points and behaviors will vary depending on the density, the process, and the variety of each sample. Now that our system is set up, let's get into some roasting. Start by weighing the density tube with the lid on a scale. This combined weight is important for the app to know whether you're using a version 1 or version 2 tube to do the density protocol. Then remove the lid and set it aside. Tear off the scale, then proceed to place the tiered off tube into the bean tray. Now proceed to weigh out between 80 to 100 grams of the green sample you're roasting. Note that you'll need a minimum of 80 grams to do an accurate density reading. Now pour the entire contents that have been weighed out into the tube and allow the excess to spill over the sides into the bean tray. Holding the tube with one hand, pick up the lid that is inverted and use it to level off the excess. I find that using a side-to-side motion is the most effective way to level off the tube. Throughout the process, do not tap, bang, or try to overcompact more coffee than what naturally fits. You can check this by seeing that the lid and the top of the density tube are level when you remove the lid. There should be a flat surface with no coffee protruding visibly from the top. Once you've completed this, take the tube with the leveled coffee over back onto the scale to get your density reading. It's important to remember that volume by weight density number. Now pour the remaining coffee from the density tube back into the bean tray. Place an empty dosing cup on a scale and tear it off. Pick up the bean tray and squeeze the edges in order to be able to place the coffee back into the dosing cup. Using your smartphone, open the Link app. We are going to select on the left-hand side the profile selector. When prompted with the two choices, we are going to select a new sample entry. We're going to start by inputting the volume by weight density that we took in the previous reading. The next step is to input the process. Note it doesn't need to be the exact process of the coffee, just whichever of the 6 options best represents the coffee style that you're roasting. The next input is selecting the power supply for the unit that you are using. This will alter the factor of the solution, so make sure you select the right one. The last input is optional and not needed if you want to skip this. Today we're going to enter that we're roasting a lovely Mexican variety. We click Done, and then the app will suggest the profile number that we're going to be looking for within our system. One of the great features of the Link is that you don't need to have your computer connected or the Link Studio software open in order to do a roast. Additionally, you can also access any of the profile pack inboxes to select your suggested roast profiles directly from the unit with ease. I'm going to show you on the unit how you can find this profile. We're going to push the far right menu button 4 times until it comes up with profile packs, and then we push play. Now we're going to use the plus or the minus button to navigate through the inboxes. We're going to start by using the D or default pack by pushing play. Using the 4th from the right button, we're going to click that once, so then we can start to scroll through the profiles. Now remember, we're looking for profile 210. When we found it, we simply push play. Now, I'm going to show you how we can make that same selection directly from the software. We're going to click on the bonbon icon and go to the Profiles tab. We're then going to select the right inbox that we want to work with. Today, we want to select the default D-Pack. Once that's loaded, we're going to go across the next icon, open it up, and we're going to search for the profile number, select 210, and then push the little black pen icon in order to pull that profile and send it to the roaster. For more information on the different profile packs for cupping and how they're best utilized, please reference page 28 in the user manual. It's now time to get started with some roasting. Let's take that weighed out dose in our dosing cup and place it into the roaster. Pour slowly and make sure all contents are emptied into the tube. Now grab your husk collector, put it on top, and give a little twist to make sure it locks in place. We then push play in order to be able to select our batch size. Something to note here is the Link is variable in batch size. You can select any roast size between 50 and 100 grams and every gram in between. You do not need to change the profile as the unit will calibrate the fan and heat needed, depending on the input of batch size that you select. Now going back to that previous roast, today we are roasting 100 grams. We make that selection and then we push play in order to start the roasting process. When starting the roasting process and connected to the computer via the tether, you'll notice that the live log starts to track whilst roasting. You'll notice the connection icon changes to the little flame icon to indicate that roasting is in progress. During the roasting process, there are limited to no actions needed by the end user. The Link is designed to make smart decisions automatically, on how to control the roaster based on the ambient temperature, movement of the voltage curve, the power curve, and the ROR line to give you the optimized roast for the profile pack purposes that you've selected. Something to note with the link profiling: the preheating system is within the drying phase of the roasting. This occurs for the first 45 seconds. Because we are starting at ambient temperature, the system is allowed to utilize as much wattage as needed to make sure that it has enough momentum in order to complete the roast in the allocated time frame. Visually, you'll notice this preheating setup at the start of every roast. Please be reassured that your roaster is behaving in the correct manner and operating as intended. With the preheating finish, the roaster is now going to track back onto the normal profile. At this stage, the drying phase is coming to an end, and we are transitioning into the mallard phase. This is noted visually when looking through the sight glass, as the coffee is changing from a green color to a straw brown. Someone wishing to log the percentage of the roast spent in the different phases can do so by clicking the CC button on the Link Studio. This will allow a measurement of the time spent in each of the phases. This is a non-essential action and purely for a user who is curious about observing the different attributes of each roast. As the roast progresses, the color of the coffee that we can see through the sight glass turns from a light caramelly color to a dark, almost dark chocolate-like brown. During the end of the mallard phase, we will often hear an audible popping noise that signifies the first crack. Note that for some coffees, the first crack point is a soft sound that's not always easy to be heard. For more advanced users, we can log a point of the first crack. This will give a new reference point to the DTR system and allow it to override the default. When a crack is logged, the development percent counter will start to count up. Once it hits the right number, it will terminate automatically to ensure that the development percentage predetermined at the start of the roast was achieved. Logging the first crack can be done within the Link Studio by clicking the FC button. First crack can also be logged directly from the unit. To access this feature, you need to be roasting a batch of coffee. While it's roasting, push the far menu button once in order to bring up the first crack prompt. When an audible first crack point is heard, push the play button to reference that point. Reference page 28 of your user manual to reference the usual cracking points expected for each of the different profile packs. Once the roast is complete, you'll notice that the icon will transition from roasting. It'll go to a loading bar and then return to green once the log has been saved. Now that we've finished the roast, we're going to remove the chaff collector and sit it to the side. We're going to get an empty dosing cup inverted and sit it over the opening. Press the dosing cup firmly downwards, and with your other hand, grab the roaster by the base and invert it 180 degrees to remove the coffee. Once you have removed the coffee, flip the roaster back into its original resting position. We now need to empty the chaff collector in between each batch. Holding the chaff collector, twist and turn the lid with your other hand, then sit it aside. Lift out the chaff collector and then tip it into a bin or a tray to remove the chaff. Once the chaff collector is empty, we're then going to place it back into its original housing. Pick up the lid and place it back on top of the chaff collector and then click it tight until it's shut. Now, let's take a moment to observe the roast log. We're going to click on the bonbon feature and we're going to pull up the logs inbox so we can see all the logs. The top one is the most recent, which is the one that I've just roasted. Now, if we click on the area of the roast, like the first crack, we can zoom in to have an enhanced view of when exactly that occurred. We do this by using the plus and the minus icons within the software. Let's zoom in and have a little bit of a look at exacting temperature points and times for this profile. We use the minus to zoom back out and get back to the original setting. Another feature we can do is go to our tools and go compare files. This will open up all of the files in our inbox, and we're able to select many roasts in order to compare multiple at the same time if we want to check any differences in how coffees may have behaved or roasted. We can see now we have the two logs showing as a shadow. To clear this function, we go back up to Tools and we do Clear Compare in order to get rid of that. Now the next aspect of the log is if we want to archive, remove, or clear any logged profile. We would click on the bonbon. Go to the Open Folders tab, and once that open, we would select the file that we want to archive or clear from this folder and remove it to the location that we want to put it. And another aspect of the roasting process is going into About This file. This tells us all the details of how the coffee roasted, the characteristics of the roast unit, its machine hours, roast hours, ambient temperatures, and all of the details that occurred during the process of roasting. The best thing about the link is straight after roast. We are able to prepare cupping without noticing a lot of those gassy flavors that we normally associate with the roasting process. This allows the user to be able to taste coffees much sooner off roast and get a fair and honest expression of their characteristics. Cupping recommendations for the link is around 12 grams of coffee per 200 ml of water, or around a 1 to 16.67 ratio. Then follow the standardized procedure of cupping protocol to assess your coffee characteristics. The first roast came up amazingly on the 210 D-Pack profile for cupping. I hope that you find the same success with your samples, and that this guided tour through unboxing the link and a step-by-step walkthrough of the V1 profiles was useful. As always, happy roasting and cupping.